Well, we got a show for you today. Jay Sekulow is here. King and Country is here. They're going to have some excerpts from their movie Priceless. It's going to be exciting. But you know, in Charlotte, North Carolina, a wonderful city, growing city, the heads of a couple of big banks, Bank of America's down in Charlotte. They're having riots. They have to call out the police. Why? A black policeman shot a black human man. And the black man, as I understand, had a gun. And on the strength of that, it has started a riot, and people are saying, we want to kill white people. White people didn't have anything to do with it. Chief of police, others. It's just insane. But we've got a situation, and I think it has been exacerbated by the presence of the President of the United States. And it's got this, you know, Black Lives Matter and this anti-police thing, and the police are, you know, walk out in fear of their lives now, and we've got chaos. We've got over 1,000 people shot in Chicago, all across the country. There's this state of lawlessness when we needed to stop and frisk, when we needed to take high-value suspects and take them off the street, and the police are being prohibited from doing that. But anyhow, in the news, and it's the big story, a state of emergency in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the governor has called in the National Guard after another night of violent protests over the black policeman who shot a black man.
Well, the protesters have unleashed a wave of destruction, looting and vandalizing businesses. One man was shot and at least 4 police officers have been injured. Caitlin Burke has the story.
It started as a prayer vigil and devolved into chaos. Angry protesters taking over the streets of Charlotte, facing off against police in riot gear. This all in the wake of the fatal police shooting of Keith Lamont Scott, a black man shot by a black police officer. Police say a gun was recovered at the scene. His family insists it wasn't a gun, but a book.
Mr. Scott exited his vehicle armed with a handgun as the officers continued to yell at him to drop it.
Pow, 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 pow. That's it. He had no gun.
The officer who shot Scott, Brentley Vinson, wasn't wearing a body camera, but 3 other officers on the scene were. The Charlotte Police Department won't release that footage, saying it's evidence in the investigation. That only angers protesters more, and last night the violent demonstrations led to injuries. One man is now on life support after being shot in the head by another civilian. And the Charlotte Police Department says 4 of its officers were injured. Even journalists found themselves under attack. A CNN reporter pushed to the ground on live television. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are speaking out about police-involved shootings in Charlotte and in Tulsa, with Trump saying that although he's a tremendous supporter of the police and law and order, he was very, very troubled by a recent shooting in Oklahoma and called for a national expansion of the policy of stop and frisk. Clinton, meanwhile, has made curbing gun violence and the police brutality a central part of her campaign.
It's unbearable, and it needs to become intolerable.
With the latest controversies in police shootings and the terrorist attacks in New York, New Jersey, and Minnesota, all of these issues are now guaranteed to be on the front burner for Monday's presidential debate between Clinton and Trump. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Well, the race for the White House, if you read the polls, Donald Trump is up substantially in battleground states such as Ohio and I believe Nevada and possibly Florida. And he's, well, it depends on which poll you read, but the race is certainly neck and neck. And the debate on Monday is going to be major. They look like there may be the biggest crowd ever for one of those things. 100 million people projected to be watching it. And some conservatives have serious questions about one of Clinton's top aides, Huma Abedin. John Jessup has that story.
Thanks, Pat. If Hillary Clinton becomes the next president of the United States, her key advisor, Huma Abedin, will be close by her side. Some on the right have raised red flags, saying her family has ties to terrorist organizations. David Brody has that story.
They are inseparable. Over 2 decades, Hillary Clinton and Huma Abedin have developed an almost mother-daughter-like relationship. She has Clinton's ear on a daily basis, and her name can be seen on a majority of those State Department emails that have surfaced in the investigation over Clinton's private email server. That connection isn't the only one raising concerns about Abedin. She is a Muslim American who grew up in Saudi Arabia and worked as an editor under her mother on the Journal of Minority Muslim Affairs. Former presidential candidate and Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann has sounded the alarm for years.
What this journal did is look at countries that were not Islamic countries, and they tried to push the advancement of Sharia law in countries that were not Islamic.
Critics say the journal opposes women's rights and blames the U.S. for 9/11. Abedin's father founded the journal, and her mother is listed as editor-in-chief. Her brother is involved too, and for nearly a decade, so was Huma Abedin.
Huma Abedin was listed as an assistant editor, deciding what they would print, what the stories would be. This was the family business, advancing Islamic Sharia law.
The Clinton campaign is pushing back, saying, quote, her name was simply listed on the masthead. She did not play a role in editing at the publication. But Abedin's connections to the journal isn't the only controversy at play here. The family has also ties to this man, Abdullah Omar Nassif, a longtime family friend who helped start the journal. He's also been identified as someone with financial connections to terror groups like Al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood. Given these revelations, Bachmann wants to know why Abedin received a security clearance throughout her years with Clinton.
From what I know of federal law, she never would have been given a security clearance to be anywhere near the First Lady or near a United States Senator with those kind of more than questionable family relationships.
Bachmann and some of her GOP colleagues raised these issues about Abedin back in 2012 with a detailed letter saying that she had, quote, immediate family connections to foreign extremist organizations. But it went nowhere and even came upon ridicule by fellow Republicans.
These sinister accusations rest solely on a few unspecified and unsubstantiated associations of members of Huma's family, none of which have been shown to harm or threaten the United States in any way.
Many things have changed since then, namely Secretary Clinton's email scandal with Abedin's name often front and center, not to mention renewed scrutiny in the current presidential race.
Take a look at where she worked, by the way, and take a look at where her mother worked and works. You take a look at the whole event.
With this presidential race almost over, time will tell if Huma Abedin and her family ties become a problem for Clinton. David Brody, CBN News.
Thanks, David. Pat, from White House intern to key advisor, Huma Abedin is among the closest in Clinton's inner circle.
Well, if Hillary Clinton is elected president, Huma Abedin very well could be the White House chief of staff. Now, here's somebody who was involved in the editorial staff of a radical Muslim publication. You know, sooner or later, we've got to stop being such patsies and recognize that there is a group out in the world who wants to destroy us, destroy our way of life and kill us. That's what they want to do. And the fact that we continually turn a blind eye to radical Islam is shocking. If you find 1,000 pages were taken out of the FBI training manual dealing with Islam, 1,000 pages. And I had a guest the other day who said there's not one mention now in the training that takes place with counterterrorism people at the various agencies in our government dealing with radical Islam. They will not even let them discuss it. And folks, this stuff has got to stop. You know, I don't know who they're playing to, whether it's Hamtramck, Michigan, or where they think there's got some votes, but this whole thing, we are, you know, like a pig getting ready for slaughter, and nobody is sounding the alarm. I shouldn't say nobody's sounding the alarm. We're sounding the alarm. And Jay Sekulow is going to sound an alarm a little bit later about a book he's written. Well, John, let's talk something else. The IRS has been doing some bad things.
Pat, IRS Chief John Koskinen faced more tough questions from congressional Republicans over the Tea Party targeting scandal. Some conservatives want to impeach Koskinen because of statements he's made during investigations and hearings into that scandal, where the IRS held up approval for tax-exempt status for conservative political groups. Koskinen said some things in hearings that later proved untrue, but he said he was unaware at the time. Some conservatives are skeptical and say Koskinen should be removed from office, but Pat, Republicans would likely have a tough time rounding up enough votes for an impeachment.
Well, Koskinen is a bad guy. He's done some bad things, and worse than that, Lois Lerner, who had an animus against conservative groups and played it out as head of the exempt branch of the IRS. The IRS has been shown to be shot through with problems. But I say this very advisedly, the last thing we need now is to get mired into some stupid, ill-timed, ill-advised impeachment, because it would never go anywhere. You've got to get a substantial majority in the Senate to convict. It'll never happen. Whether the House would ever vote it through is unknown, but it's the last thing we need. We can't do it. I mean, he's a minor official, and so there are other ways to deal with him, but we sure don't want impeachment.